Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Kooks, Cranks, and Iconoclasts, the podcast. I'm your host, Mike Luck, and this is just a one-off thing I'm just doing real quick, just to get out of the way, because I normally don't give a shit about this stuff, but... I mean, I do, but... I like my show to be an escape. You can go for the occult, the paranormal, conspiracy theories, cryptids, etc., the supernatural, the paranormal, and all your weird shit needs in general. But today, we're going to wade into a dark, sprawling, and deeply unsettling world of the latest EPSTEIN Files release. Also, if you couldn't tell, I'm letting my shitty voice heal up from all the talking, screaming, and yelling I've been doing at the sky, existence, everything around me, etc. On January 30th, 2026, the U.S. Department of Justice dumped over 3 million pages of documents, videos, and photos onto its website, a release mandated by the EPSTEIN Files Transparency Act 5.10. This trove is a labyrinth of emails, interview transcripts, draft indictments, and handwritten notes, painting a grim portrait of a criminal enterprise enabled by wealth, power, and systematic failure. Failure. But this release has been met with outrage. 20 survivors issued a scathing statement saying the documents exposed their, quote, names and identifying information, unquote, while, quote, the men who abused us remain hidden and protected, unquote. It's true. Critics have called the handling of the releases, quote unquote, sloppy.
I know how you kids like them sloppy.
Kind of like this hastily thrown together podcast, or mini episode, if you will, noting that unredacted driver's licenses and other personal details of victims were made public. So, as we go through this list, keep in mind that we are peering into a deliberately and, according to many, incompetently obscured record. Here are 20 of the most heinous accusations and revelations from this massive document drop. First, let's start with the foundation of the government's own case. Buried in the files is a 56-page draft indictment from federal prosecutors in Florida. Oh, Florida. Prepared in the mid-2000s but never used. This document lays out the alleged criminal enterprise in stark detail. The conspiracy to traffic minors. The draft indictment accuses Epstein and 3 of his personal assistants, whose names are redacted, of a conspiracy to, quote, arrange appointments for minor females to travel to Epstein's house in Florida to allow defendant Jeffrey Epstein to engage in lewd conduct with them, unquote. This wasn't just the actions of one man, it was a coordinated effort, according to the government's own proposed charges. Dozens of alleged sex crimes against teenagers. The draft indictment sought to charge Epstein with 30 criminal counts, including sex trafficking and enticement of a minor, for crimes allegedly committed against more than a dozen teenage girls over a 6-year period from 2001 to 2005. The threats to silence victims. The indictment details how Epstein allegedly told one 16-year-old victim that, quote, bad things could happen to her if she reported what had transpired at his house, unquote. This reveals the alleged culture of fear and intimidation used to keep the abuse hidden. Beyond the indictment itself, the files expose the web of powerful people who orbited Epstein. The DOJ insists that appearing in the documents does not imply criminal conduct, but the connections are often damning. And just me quickly editorializing, where there's smoke, there's fire. Okay, these motherfuckers all smell pretty smoky to me. Casey Wasserman's raunchy emails. Casey Wasserman, the powerful Hollywood agent and chair of the LA 2028 Olympics Organizing Committee, exchanged, quote, very flirty, unquote, and, quote, raunchy, unquote, emails with Ghislaine Maxwell in 2006. 2003. The records show they discussed quote-unquote massages, quote-unquote rubbing, and naked beach scenarios, all while Wasserman's wife was 8 months pregnant. Elon Musk's quote-unquote wildest party inquiry. In November 2012, Elon Musk emailed Epstein asking, how many people will you be for the Helita Island? How many people will you be for the Helita Island? That's a quote-unquote. Okay. English is not his first language. Mine either. Musk followed up asking, quote, what day/night will be the wildest party on your island, unquote. While Musk replied in January 2013 that, quote, logistics won't work this time around, unquote. Ghislaine Maxwell's recruitment demand. One of the most chilling allegations comes from a victim who claims Maxwell directly asked her to recruit other girls for Epstein with the specific instruction that they, quote, they have to look young at least, unquote. When the victim refused, Maxwell reportedly became angry. The files contain hundreds of mentions of Donald Trump and emails between Epstein and a person called, quote-unquote, the Duke. While the former prince's office did not respond, that's Prince Edward? No, Andrew. I was thinking of Jack the Ripper. While the former prince's office did not respond to requests for comment about these new emails, the correspondence adds to the existing body of connections between Epstein and royalty. Emails from late 2018 reveal that Epstein sent identical high-end Hermes Apple Watches valued at $1,499 each to Steve Bannon and his son, Sean Bannon. An email from Epstein's assistant noted, quote, Jeffrey will give to Steve when he sees him next, unquote. Steve Bannon the one pushing all that QAnon shit back in the day? Wasn't he like the chief architect of all that? Newly released files show that Trump's Commerce Secretary, Howard Lutnick, arranged to visit Epstein's private island. The nature and purpose of the visit are not detailed in the search results, but the arrangement itself is a significant connection. Why would anyone go to Epstein Island, I wonder? Perhaps the most maddening aspect of these files is what they reveal about the institutions that we allow to run things and that we're supposed to stop them. The FBI ignored a 1996 tip. The documents underscore a catastrophic failure by law enforcement. It was previously reported that at least one Epstein victim reported the sexual abuse of her 16-year-old sister by Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell to the FBI in 1996. This tip came years before his ultimate prosecution. A slide titled, quote-unquote, misconceptions within the DOJ's own materials makes stunning claims. Investigators allegedly found that, quote, no orgies or threesomes took place which involved two males. Okay, shit, not what I heard. Unquote. And that, quote, victims were not held captive, unquote. You can leave whenever you want. Good to see they were getting into the real nitty-gritty. It also states that Epstein, quote, did not regularly prostitute the victims in exchange for money, unquote. These assertions fly in the face of numerous victim testimonies and public perception. In a move that fuels suspicion, less than a day after the January 30th release, 16 files vanished from the DOJ webpage without any explanation. The DOJ states it identified over 6 million potentially responsive pages, but is only releasing about 3.5 million after review and redactions. This means millions of pages are still being withheld, leading to bipartisan criticism that the department is not in full compliance with the law. We'll come back to that in just a second, those disappearing files. Finally, we have to circle back to the victims. Documents are not just about quote-unquote powerful men, pieces of shit. They are about the lives they shattered. Despite Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanchard's claim that protecting victims was a priority, the release has been condemned for revealing first and last names and even unredacted driver's licenses and photos of known Epstein survivors. While victims' identities were left exposed, Fox News reported that the redactions include, quote, politically exposed individuals and government officials, unquote, even though Deputy A.G. Blanche insisted to the network that the DOJ had, quote, not redacted, the word redacted, the names of any politicians, unquote, nor other, quote-unquote, famous people. The contradiction is at the heart of the survivors' outrage. Survivors and lawmakers are demanding the names of Epstein's co-conspirators be released. As Congressman Robert Garcia stated, quote, we are demanding the names of Epstein's co-conspirators and the men and pedophiles who abused women and girls, unquote. One email from Ghislaine Maxwell to Epstein is chillingly direct, asking, quote, have you found me some new inappropriate friends, unquote. This question, found within the files, seems to encapsulate the entire operation. Buried in all of this mess is an email signed, quote, Love Melania, that appears to be addressed to Ghislaine Maxwell. The context and content of this email are not detailed in the search results, but its presence is a point of intense interest and speculation. The scale of this release is an accusation in and of itself. It includes over 2,000 videos and 180,000 images, all subject to what the DOJ calls, quote, extensive redactions, unquote. This visual and video evidence represents a massive, largely unseen record of the crimes. Deputy A.G. Blanche described this as, quote, the final release, unquote. But lawmakers like Congressman Ro Khanna are wary, stating that their work and investigation are, quote, just getting started, unquote, due to the partial nature of the production. So, 20 points. That's 20 points from a deep, dark well of information. The latest Epstein file release has answered some questions, but it has raised countless more. It has provided evidence of a horrifying criminal enterprise while simultaneously fueling accusations of a cover-up that protects the powerful and re-traumatizes the vulnerable. The promise of transparency has, for many, become a source of fresh pain. The fight for the full truth, it seems, is far from over.
But wait! There's more!
Based on the documents released by the U.S. Department of Justice, here are detailed accounts of 10 of the most disturbing singular events and allegations laid out in the Epstein files. The disappearance of files. That's a big one. Less than 24 hours after the massive January 30th, 2026 release, 16 files vanished from the public DOJ webpage without any explanation. This act, whether due to technical error or deliberate action, fuels suspicion about the transparency of the release and raises the disturbing possibility that crucial evidence or testimony is being actively suppressed, obstructing the public's right to a full accounting of the crimes. Based on provided research results, there is no information available about the specific contents of the 16 files that disappeared from the DOJ's website. The search results confirm that the files vanished less than a day after the major release on January 30th, 2026, and that their disappearance occurred, quote, without explanation, unquote. However, none of the articles, news reports, or official statements detail what, if anything, was contained within those specific 16 files before they were removed. The focus of the available information is on the fact of their disappearance and the suspicion it created, rather than on any analysis of their contents. For instance, the search results do not mention any journalists, researchers, or members of the public having downloaded or reviewed those specific files prior to their removal. Therefore, any claims about the contents of those missing files would be speculative, as no public record of their substance exists in whatever provided information is available online. Niner. The files contain lists and summaries. We're doing a countdown. This is several top number lists. So you got your top 20. We're in top 10 now, counting down. This is number 9. I know, it makes just about as much sense as everything else associated with this whole clusterfuck. The files contain lists and summaries of unsubstantiated claims that include graphic depictions of alleged sexual abuse, including of underage girls. The sheer volume and explicit nature of these accounts, compiled from various sources, provide a disturbingly detailed look into the specific acts of violence and exploitation alleged to have occurred, which the DOJ itself has acknowledged by withholding material depicting CSAM from the public release. Number 8. The files contain a systematic failure that allowed the abuse to continue for years. It was reported that at least one of Epstein's victims reported the sexual abuse of her 16-year-old sister by Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell to the FBI as early as 1996. This tip, which came years before the eventual prosecution, was apparently not acted upon, representing a catastrophic failure by federal authorities to stop a known predator and protect his victims. Number 7. The documents initially included a spreadsheet containing numerous claims of impropriety made against Trump and others. This list included numerous allegations of sexual abuse. While at least some of these claims appear to have been unsubstantiated tips or secondhand allegations, their inclusion in an official DOJ release and the spreadsheet's brief disappearance and restoration from the website created a firestorm of controversy and exposed the raw, unfiltered nature of the accusations against powerful men. 6. The draft indictment from Florida prosecutors details a specific act of intimidation to silence a victim. Epstein allegedly told a 16-year-old girl that, quote, bad things could happen to her if she reported what had transpired at his house, unquote. This allegation demonstrates the use of direct threats to enforce silence and perpetuate the cycle of abuse, ensuring victims were too terrified to seek help from law enforcement. 5. The files reveal a series of quote-unquote very flirty and quote-unquote raunchy emails exchanged in 2003 between Ghislaine Maxwell and Casey Wasserman, the chair of the Los Angeles 2028 Olympics Organizing Committee. The disturbing nature of this event is amplified by the context. These explicit discussions about quote-unquote massages, quote-unquote rubbing, and naked beach scenarios took place while Wasserman's wife was 8 months pregnant with their child. 4. One victim provided a harrowing account of being trapped and abused. She stated that her passport was taken away, effectively imprisoning her and preventing her escape. Following this, she said that she was sexually abused by Mr. Epstein and others. The files corroborate her presence on Epstein's private island. 3. Grand jury testimony detailed in the files reveals a chilling directive from Ghislaine Maxwell. According to the testimony, Maxwell approached one of the Epstein victims and explicitly asked her to recruit other girls for the operation. Maxwell provided a specific and predatory criteria for the recruits, telling the victim, quote, "They have to look young at least," unquote. The victim refused the request, stating that she, quote, "didn't want anyone else to go through that," unquote, highlighting the psychological coercion and complicity demanded of the abused. 2. A 56-page draft indictment. I'm sorry, I'm trying not to laugh at this. It's horror. It's real-life horror. A 56-page draft indictment prepared by federal prosecutors in Florida in the mid-2000s lays out a formal criminal accusation. This document details a conspiracy charge against Epstein and 3 of his personal assistants whose names are redacted. The indictment accuses the assistants of actively working to, quote, "arrange appointments for minor females to travel to Epstein's house in Florida to allow defendant Jeffrey Epstein to engage in lewd conduct with them," unquote. This charge reframes the abuse not as acts of a single predator, but as a coordinated criminal enterprise. Number 1. Perhaps the most horrific allegation contained in any of the files is an FBI tip concerning Donald Trump. The tip alleges that Trump witnessed the murder and subsequent disposal of an infant. The infant was reportedly born to a 13-year-old who was a victim of Epstein's trafficking operation. This claim, found within the FBI's records, stands as one of the most shocking and severe accusations leveled against any individual connected to the case. Based on the documents released thus far, the following 3 allegations stand out as the most absolutely worst crimes detailed. A crime detailed not by a victim's testimony, but by the government's own actions is the 2008 plea deal that allowed Epstein to evade true justice. Okay, this is the top 3 worst things in all of it that I've found. Number 3. A crime detailed not by a victim's testimony, but by the government's own actions in the 2008 plea deal that allowed Epstein to evade true justice. After federal investigators had compiled enough evidence for the extensive draft indictment, they agreed to shelve the case in favor of a non-prosecution agreement. Epstein pleaded guilty to a single state charge of soliciting a minor for prostitution and was sentenced to a mere 13 months in a county jail. The egregious nature of this sentence was compounded by the fact that he was allowed extensive work release, meaning he spent most of his quote-unquote incarceration at his home office. This act, a failure of the justice system to prosecute a known and prolific child predator, effectively enabled his continued criminal behavior and is detailed as a profound miscarriage of justice within the files themselves. 2. While the infant murder is a singular shocking event, the draft indictment, prepared by federal prosecutors in 2007, lays out the horrifying scale and systematic nature of Epstein's criminal enterprise as a whole. This 56-page, 32-count draft indictment, which was never filed, details a conspiracy to traffic and sexually abuse more than a dozen teenage girls over a 6-year period. Even longer if there's any meat on that 1996 gristle that we heard about earlier. It accuses Epstein and his employees of running a coordinated operation to entice minors and transport them for the purposes of sexual abuse. The document also reveals the methods of control, including Epstein allegedly telling a 16-year-old victim that, quote, bad things could happen to her if she reported what had transpired at his house, unquote. The sheer volume of victims and the organized predatory nature of the enterprise detailed by federal prosecutors themselves makes this one of the worst crimes outlined in the files. And number 1, the aforementioned murder and disposal of a newborn infant. This is arguably the most horrific and severe allegation contained within the entire body of the files. An FBI tip documented within the release materials accuses Donald Trump of witnessing the murder of a newborn infant and the subsequent disposal of the body. The allegation originates from a complaint from an unnamed woman who claimed she was 13 years old and pregnant in 1984 when she was sex trafficked by Jeffrey Epstein and her uncle. In the document, she states that Trump was present when her uncle murdered her newborn child and that the body was disposed of in Lake Michigan. This single allegation combines child sex trafficking, forced pregnancy, infant murder, and the alleged participation of a then prominent public figure, making it profoundly and uniquely disturbing. Okay, I think that's everything, that really encapsulates all the most horrible shit in less than under 30 minutes, or free. And here it is, it's free. So yeah, that's everything you need to know. I mean, there's plenty more, but that is the condensed shit nuggets of all the worst that's come out so far. So Woo! I'm gonna go vomit. Thanks for listening. This is Kook Strengths and Iconoclast, the podcast. I'm your host, Mike, and I will see you on the next episode.